being creative together with each other.
Uh-huh.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Now it has many different kind of forms when you put it in the business environment. But again, it's always people coming together, being creative. I think now it also kind of applies. It's not just creative people being creative together, but now it's creative people working with all kinds of other people. Doing creative activities or working early in the design process, sometimes later in the design process. So and it looks different depending on where you're using it, whether you're in the beginning of the process or you're using co-creation just to get people more involved in the brand. Okay, so now it's a business tool. It's a business and marketing tool at one end, and it's also a design and innovation tool at the other end. Well, I think it can be used anywhere.
No.
It can be used before, during the research, during the design, during the marketing and the sales. It can be used after it can be used anywhere in the process.
Anywhere.
Okay. Most of my work in co-creation is at the front end of the process, where the client is wanting to innovate in a given area, or maybe just even serve their customers in a different way. But I think most of the talk about co-creation is at the other end, and it's at more of the marketing and sales end. So companies are using co-creation to get ideas from people over the internet for free. Do you know what I mean? Or they're giving people prizes for creating an advertisement for their company in order to get people to pay attention to the brand and to the company. See, so there's a big difference between the front end and the back end, but it's co-creation. And I would say then when it's in the front, if they're really looking broadly, they may not even they might be using co-creation to figure out, should it be a product, should it be a service? Do you know what I mean? They might not even have a goal in mind other than understanding the people that have been their customers, for example. Okay, so it might be to discover what they need to do. So it's different purposes, but they're both co-creation. And I see also, and I think here in Spain, a lot of talk about using co-creation inside the company as a way of getting people from different disciplines to communicate better, to be more innovative with each other. And so that's a kind of co-creation that can happen anywhere in the process. Okay? So sometimes the co-creation is inside of a company. Sometimes it's between the company and the other partners or suppliers. And sometimes it's between the company and the people that they serve. Okay, and then another category is communities. It could be a community. It's not a company and customers or whatever, but a community. So there's a lot of different ways. Many different ways.
And also between different companies could be a co-creation or different associations to try to generate opportunities or together, no?
Usually, the focus will be on experience as opposed to products or services or anything like that. But a lot of times, or I find that if your purpose is to do a workshop or get people together in order for them to co-create, say, a vision for the future, that first you need to let them express and think about their current situation. Okay, so you really need to get the current lifestyle, the current working together, understand that, or let them tell you about that, let them complain about that, and then that experience helps them reimagine what that future could be. So usually up front, it's not about co-creating products or services. It's about imagining and demonstrating future experiences. And they might make things that look like products, but really those are tools that help them think about what the future
to create
could be.
Conversations and to create...
Or even devices. I might have them create a device. But it isn't that I'm looking for a product idea, but the device helps them tell a story or act out a story. Say somewhere between 2 hours and maybe 3 hours or 4, because there's a number of different sort of
sessions.
Activities, right? Yeah. It could be a whole day, but probably 2 hours at least. Yeah. Well, it depends on whether it might just, like this morning, it was just a workshop because it was more, getting people interested in a project. There might be. It depends all on the project. So there would probably be several workshops, and some of them might be more workshops with the client. Others might be workshops with the end users or the people that they're involving in the process. So some projects go for weeks, some go for years. Generally, we make sure that they're ready by having them do some activities before the workshop. So there's usually a prep, we call it homework. Okay? There's usually some things that they need to do.
By their own?
Yeah, but we send it to them. We might send them a workbook that structures what they're to observe or take pictures of or think about. So we go to a lot of work to make sure that when they do come to the workshop, they've been, thinking about this area for a while and reflecting on it and making notes and observations. Okay. So instead of, say, selecting certain kinds of people, instead we try to get everybody in the workshop prepared for it. Some of it could just be providing an experience in working this way. Sometimes it's just providing an experience where they can see that they can work together. A lot of my experiences recently have been having them come together to express a vision for the future. Okay. There's also sessions that are focused on ideas, and there's others that are just focused on having them describe their experience, their past, present. So understanding experience is another kind of an approach. Yeah, and some sessions are more, individuals, people working as individuals around a table. And other sessions, the people around the table are working together. So sometimes they work apart and present to each other. Sometimes they work together. So it all depends on what you're doing, right, and that kind of a thing. I think the barrier to getting the work to happen in that way, I think the mindset, maybe the mindset of the person in charge or somebody important in the team doesn't believe that co-creation is a useful thing, then that can be a very strong barrier. Especially if it's the person who needs to pay for this to happen, then it can be a big barrier. So I think mindset is the biggest barrier. Well, we already have a way to do it. I mean, so it's not one mindset is, well, people aren't creative, we can't work this way. The other is, well, we already have a process, so we don't need it. That kind of thing. So I think that's a barrier. Well, and then another barrier would be we would like to do it, but we can't afford it or whatever. So there's all kinds of reality issues like that. I think that once you are working with people this way, the barriers could be. In some situations, you'll be asking people to, say, make things or do creative activities, and they may feel that they can't. I don't usually have too much trouble with that. I think sometimes the homework they do ahead of time gives them a little more confidence once they come to do it. So usually that goes away after time. I did have one situation with a hospital project where it was a group of older people because they were heart patients, and one of the men in the group said, I put the materials out. They were to make a collage with materials and pictures and words, and he told me that he didn't do that. No, that he wasn't there to make collages. He had come to the meeting because he wanted to see architectural drawings and he wanted to critique them. You see, so I was working through the architectural firm for there, and so he was expecting to look at beautiful drawings and say,
I don't like that.
So instead, I'm asking him to make a collage. Yeah. So he said he wasn't going to do it. Yeah. And then another one of the older men said, I'm not going to do it either.
Oh, wow. So the problem is when they get together. Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, why don't you leave, but don't go too far. Just, go out and take a break and come back in about 15 minutes. And the rest of us will do it, and then you can see what's happening. But it worked out because one of the women in the group, she said, she took him.
On.
She took him in, she sat him down, and he said, "You're working with me." And he did. Okay. And another one of the women took the other guy and said, "All right, you're working with me." So they, it went fine after that. You know what I mean? They paired up and they worked together. I think that they'll get to the useful ideas faster. So if the ideas are coming from the people who will be, the recipients at the end, you know what I mean? If the ideas are coming from the people who will be using what results, then I think it's a faster route to the good ideas, the right ideas. Because you can generate many ideas, but the point is, which are the ones that really matter? So I think although there's more work up front, it pays off in the long run. So I think better ideas, more relevant ideas, but I think also, too, that when you're involving the people in that co-creation process, the ownership that they feel about it is sometimes even more powerful than the ideas that come out. And this is something that I think people tend to underestimate how important that can be. And I've been on projects where it became real clear that was the big thing that happened, was the feeling of ownership and the pride, or it was hearing the nurses talk about their room. They designed. They didn't. They inspired the architects to design it differently, but in the end, it was theirs. It was theirs.
They feel it that way.
And so what that means then is when they move into the new hospital, it won't be so hard for them to accommodate it. And new nurses that they have to train will, they'll be happy to train the new nurses in the new room. So I think that's extremely important. Yes. Or if you're talking about change within an organization, if the people have been a part of coming up with ideas for how it's going to work, what those changes are going to be, the change will be it will be easier in the long run too. So the involvement is, they own. If they participate in creating it, they own it.